morning, good afternoon, and maybe good evening, depending on where you are, as we hope our audience is connected from all across Europe, but also across the world. It's our pleasure to introduce this webinar, where we will present the second handbook developing the framework of the European Supervisory Digital Finance Academy. As you know, this year e-book title is Digital Finance in the European Union, Navigating New Technological Trends and the AI Revolution. My name is Nicola Bilotta, and I'm the coordinator of SDFA at the Florence School of Banking and Finance. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to this seminar. As a first step of the seminar, I will pass the floor to Laura Rinaldi, who is Head of Unit at the Reform and Investment Task Force at the SG Reform. Laura.
Thank you, Nicola. Good morning, everyone. It's actually good afternoon by now. It's really my pleasure to welcome you here for the presentation of the second e-book on digital finance in the EU. As Nicola already introduced me, I'm working at the European Commission in the Reform and Investment Task Force, and I had the privilege in my role to launch the European Supervisory Digital Finance Academy, which I will explain in a minute what it is, but it's actually the initiative under which this e-book has been produced. So to explain indeed, the Reform and Investment Task Force is in charge of the technical support instrument, which is a demand-driven instrument available to the member states, to the EU member states, to undertake reforms and to get their administrations ready for economic and policy challenges. The technical support allows member states, therefore, to get the expertise that they need to undertake the reform process on very specific areas. Moreover, member states often face common challenges, and therefore, through the technical support, we also help them in multi-country initiatives to address their common challenges and create cooperation. The European Supervisory Digital Finance Academy is a very special technical support project that was launched back in 2022. What is it? It is a policy-oriented and comprehensive capacity building program on digital finance, really thought for the European supervisors. As said, we launched it in 2022 as a flagship initiative. It was an initiative of the Commission, which many member states were happy to take. And since then, we are working together. The program was created with the collaboration of and indispensable support of the European University Institute and the three European Supervisory Authorities for the financial sector, EBA, EIOPA, and ESMA. Therefore, it is a multidisciplinary program covering all areas of the financial sector. This program now comprises all member states, and as I said, is a comprehensive program. Is actually an academy which has the objective to share knowledge, building on the creation of a community, and share knowledge to the widest possible extent, keeping the focus on the needs of supervisors, the knowledge need of supervisors in the era of digital finance, but really going beyond and including perspectives from practitioners, from academics. This program has been very successful. After we are now in the third year, and there will be a following three-year program, and it's very modular and includes many different initiatives. One of them is indeed this e-book, which is the second edition. We already had one last year. And the objective of the e-book is really to complement the continuous needs of financial supervisors and digital finance experts in general to enhance their understanding of digital technologies and their application in the financial sector. this ebook in the end really wants to be an extension of the training program to allow deepening some topics, but also creating the basis and the opportunity for allowing for discussion and exchange with a broader audience. The second ebook is actually providing a bit of an overview of what were the topics in the second year of the academy, trying to really dig deeper on the sessions that we had in the training program, many of which were related to artificial intelligence, which we know it's a pervasive topic of everyday life. The topics that we have included in the book were selected based on the exchanges among the national competent authorities within the activities of the program, but also taking into consideration input from experts and speakers within the academy, and also keeping an eye on monitoring what are the main global and European trends. Therefore, the selection takes into account the needs to target a variety of possible readers within the supervisory community and beyond, therefore willing to get a sense of what are the emerging perspectives and the links between AI and other finance-related topics. It's really nice to see that the ebook was already downloaded more than 2,000 times. So it means that there is a broad interest that goes indeed beyond the participants to the EU Supervisory Digital Finance Academy. And so it would be very interesting now to go a bit deeper into the papers that are included in the ebook. Therefore, I'll stop here. Thank you very much for being here with us and for going through the ebook. I hope there will be many more downloads. And now I'll pass the floor to my colleague Lorenzo Moretti, who was a co-editor of the book together with me and Pierre Schlosser. So Lorenzo, the floor is yours. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Laura, and hello, everybody. Welcome from my side too to this online event. I'm a research fellow at the EUI Florence School of Banking and Finance and one of the editor of this volume. I'll just say one quick thing before delving into the content. So now we'll start covering a bit more the content of this volume. If you want to ask any questions, please write them in the chat. So that then Nicola will be able to see them and will be able to pass them on to us. This will make for a smoother organization of the whole conversation. Now, aside from that, I want to start by saying that it's been a real pleasure to collaborate with all the authors, and of course, not all of them can be here today at the event. But it's important to recognize that this ebook would really not be here if it weren't for them. So a general thank you to everybody who contributed. But aside from this general point, I want to take just a few minutes to get a bit into the content, and the people who will follow me will continue to do so, just to give you a bit of a flavor of what this publication is about and inspire you to indeed download it if you haven't done it already and read all of it. So the book is divided in two main parts, and I will focus on part one, just to give you an overview of what we cover there. So this part is really focused on giving an update on the main technology trends and the regulatory events and initiatives that the Commission has taken in the last few years in this field. So the first chapter is about the market developments based on digital technologies. It was written by my colleagues Nicola Lauritsen and Nicolas Passos, and it really provides an overview of the most relevant tech trends and, importantly, their implication. There is a lot in there. I really encourage you to read it. But let me just focus on 5 key points that I think is worth highlighting. The first one is that although the Americas do contribute the largest share of fintech digital finance startups, it is important to note that the EMEA region, so including Europe, has actually experienced a faster growth in the years 2018 to 2024. So I think this is an important connection to keep in mind also to the Draghi report about the competitiveness of Europe. And the point is, Europe, yes, is behind, but it's also a growing ecosystem. So keeping in mind this evolutionary component of where we are at with our technology is important. And I think Europe will continue to have a lot to say in this field. The second point that comes very clearly from a couple of different figures in the chapter is on digital payments and how these remain an important entry point into the broader fintech ecosystems. Users of digital payments are still 3 to 8 times higher in number than for basically any other digital financial service. And venture capital funding for payments is still about 2 times all the other segments. So this is particularly relevant if we think in the context of future efforts towards open banking and open finance and the role that payments still plays within this value chain. Maybe payments were the low-hanging fruits in the first wave of fintech innovation, but they remain a central segment still today to bring more and more people towards digital finance. The third point is that fintech funding has really seen a reset moment in the last couple of years. After the peak in 2021 at 200 billion, it has dropped 40% in 2023. And with the changing macro environment, we are really seeing a change in the way investors are looking at this. There is a greater focus on profitability, and this has key implications also for regulations going forward and for what business models will be viable. And this is something that both the regulators and supervisors and really everybody in the industry will need to keep in mind. A fourth interesting insight is on the uptake of the use of digital technologies by supervisors themselves, what we call SupTech. And the bottom line here is very simple, is that it's not realistic for supervisors to continue to do their job effectively without keeping up with the technological advances that the industry they're supervising is undergoing. It will be fundamental to continue fulfilling their mandate, and AI is just one, and the latest example. I think Pierre will give a few examples of this from specific chapters later on. But so we have seen good signs of this embracement of these technologies across supervisory activities. And a final point on tech trends is that digital finance and the forces behind it are ever more relevant for geopolitics. So fintech is not an inconsequential niche industry. Rather, it's really the case that digital finance innovation should be increasingly looked at through the lenses of the classic sources of power: security, knowledge, and of course money and finance. So this is really what chapter 1 says. And as I said, there is much more than what I could summarize here. But this chapter is complemented, I think, quite nicely with the second part of part 1, which is instead a regulatory update. This chapter was coordinated by my colleague Leonardo Gianni with contributions from Laura Macchioni, Daria Vernon-Demas, Alessia Benevelli, and Nicola Pilotta, and is focused on regulation. It was a great collaboration effort within the school and also with our outside partners. And I think it's particularly timely because at this point in time, it provides an important stock taking of the output of a phase of EU regulation that is probably in some way coming to an end. We are turning the page. This was the result of a very different geopolitical context. It was also largely coming from the previous commission, and it was really focused on the digital finance package, the financial data access and payment package, and the single currency package. four main areas: crypto assets, cyber resilience, open finance, and the digital euro. It highlights, I would say, at least two trends in EU regulation efforts. The first one is a bit of a shift from a pure same risk, same rules approach, sort of the classic historical approach that we've had in Europe, to also an approach where this is complemented with a bit of a function-based regulation, so addressing very specific risks and specific technologies or financial innovations. So examples are, of course, crypto with MiCA and cyber, but even AI itself. And then the other trend is really the push for the consumer-centric finance, and PSD2 with open banking had started this, and now the more recent efforts towards open finance with FIDA, etc., are really showcasing this focus. But importantly, I think this chapter, for maybe people who are a bit less accustomed to regulation, it also helps readers really orienteer in not just the content, but also the regulatory timeline of these regulatory initiatives. So the authors divided the chapter in three main types, the three main sections. New legislation that is already applicable. So this includes the DLT pilot regime and the markets in crypto assets regulations, so MiCA. Then regulation that is adopted but not yet applicable at the time of writing. So this included DORA, so the cyber regulation, and the AI Act. And then there is a section of new legislation that is in progress. So this includes the financial data access and payment package with FIDA, etc., and the digital euro initiative. It also covered other regulations that intersect with the ones that I just mentioned. But in summary, what I would say is that if you want to know where European digital finance is at, the best thing you can do is to download the ebook and read this first part of it, because it really gives this very complimentary view of where tech is going and where regulation is going. And I think it's very useful for a variety of different readers. And with this, I thank you, and I leave the floor to my colleague, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. I have just a few slides that I'd like to share to ensure that some of the findings of our contributions are also available to all of you. So also from my side, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to say a few words first about the connection with academia, and then move on to policy and subtech in particular, but then address also some of the key questions that have been made. Jan, may I suggest that you take over the control of the slides, because otherwise I cannot see some of the notes I
Sure.
had.
Of course, coming up.
Should I stop sharing?
Please.
Yeah, here we go. So as we just said, thanks, Jan. The ebook section 2 has covered really a diversity of topics, perspective, and crucial dimensions of digital finance. And I'm also from my side very grateful to all the authors for their work on this ebook. The ebook also fueled an emerging literature in the field of AI and finance. You will see on the next slide that Bahu et Ali in 2024 documented a drastically increasing and potentially exponential increase of publications of AI and finance, in particular since 2018. The interesting data point here is that close to 20% of academic finance publications now relate to AI, and this was a few years back. So why is that? And here I'm with Branka, who is one of the first contributors of the section 2 of the ebook, who recalls the 3 drivers of significant AI takeoff. She says driver 1 is the exponential creation of and availability of data. I mean, we all can relate to that. Driver 2, the increase in computing power and storage capacity. And driver 3, a significant progress in analytical capacity. So now, if you combine this with the quantitative nature of finance, you have essentially an exponential mix at hand. And that's what we're experiencing also through the lens of SDFA. Now, a similar interest can then be found also in the financial supervision area, where on the next slide, you will see that the recognition of the strategic relevance of technology in empowering banking, insurance, and financial market supervisors to carry out their mandates, as Lorenzo was recalling, all this is on the rise. We have a series of new use cases in the testing stage, and all BIS members surveyed or reported at least one subtech tool that is being deployed. But it's fair to assume that we just see the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's in the pipeline. Samir, in his contribution to the ebook, guided us a bit through the evidence of the various surveys that he reported in his part on, and essentially concluded that the integration of AI and subtech is in its early stages. True. So the survey data shows, however, widespread deployment by only 14% of national competent authorities, but with continued improvement. Around 71%, however, of NCA pilot projects have been also reported with limited deployment, and about 14% are in the initial phase of exploration and research into AI applications. So what Samir is saying is that it suggests a cautious but incremental also approach to AI adoption, with agencies focusing on understanding and testing the abilities of AI before committing to full-scale implementation. And I still quote Samir, the data revealed that machine learning and natural language processing are the most commonly adopted AI technologies used by most agencies in EU for tasks such as, on the one hand, predictive analytics and text analysis. On the next slide, and I'm still with Samir's part, so that's his language. Figure 3 shows the variety in training preferences and reveals the commitment of NCAs to building comprehensive AI abilities in multiple domains. And indeed, the most sought after training in programming languages such as Python, R, and Julia indicates a robust foundational need for technical skills, something that I must say we also have seen as part of our training programs here at EUI for EU-SDFA. There's also a significant interest in machine learning, particularly in graph and network analysis, risk modeling, and deep learning. And you will not be surprised to hear that also in terms of NLP, there is a clear interest for understanding better NLP techniques. Having said that, and I close the part here on subtech, we have also asked ourselves other types of questions in this part of the ebook. So let me focus on a few selected transversal issues. I'll just move to the next slide. You will see that we have looked at subtech. I just mentioned that, but also there is a contribution on the use cases of AI. There is contribution related also to the AI Act. And I will not make this completely exhaustive, because I think that on the next slide I have a more exhaustive actually description of what is exactly covered by which author. So perhaps we go to this slide. Now, what those contributions have in common are their attention to risks. So let's first look at this. 3 risks are usually singled out: the general increase in cyber risk vulnerability that will accompany widespread use of AI, and the rather alarming implications of an opaque use of AI in credit risk scoring is often referred to, and its discriminatory potential. And last but not least, the use of AI in life insurance assessment and its adverse selection potential. Several of the contributions also mention that when looking upstream at AI development and its capacities, there are only a few actors at the frontier. And here there is a clear concentration risk. So there are large companies, also because of the need of economies of scale, that are most of the time also based in the US. So for an idea of what we can anticipate in the future in terms of rising risk levels due to a high exposure to market concentration, one can simply think of the CrowdStrike incident. So just for those of you who do not remember it, on July 19th, 2024, last year, a software update of CrowdStrike, an external cyber provider of Microsoft, led to a global IT outage that impacted all types of public and private actors, including financial actors, and led to a globally widespread airport shutdown, just to give an example of the type of magnitude of the effect. So if you combine that on the one hand with the rise of hybrid threats and the general digitalization that we're observing in our societies, we're in for more cyber incidents. So that's the third category of risks to financial stability that Claudia and Valentina in their contribution point out, together with the concentration of AI models in only a few service providers. I alluded to that a minute ago, and interconnectedness, herding, and market correlation. What we see is that the radical update of new technologies and their applications in finance will push all organizations, public and private, out of their comfort zone. That development will require a cultural change on both sides. And here a few questions derive from that fact. Do public actors of all sizes understand that fully embracing the potential and risk of AI will also mean working more closely with outside players? Related public-private dynamics, then is it safe to assume that over the next decade or so, the largest AI developers will still be US and China based? According to recent Bruegel analysis, only 6% of the 35 billion US dollars invested globally, in AI startup in the first half of last year went to EU-based firms, so just 6%. So if that trend were to continue, it would lead to greater dependency risks, meaning that besides developing strong regulations such as the AI Act, which Marco in his contribution presented quite, I think, vividly as a piece of product safety law. So despite doing that on the regulation side and having a stronger supervisory arsenal, Europe, we know, will be grasping with the need to develop so-called sovereign AI. In closing, and as a deputy director of an executive education school, I cannot resist providing a few personal remarks here on the impact of AI on the wider world of education. So this is the final thoughts of this of my part. Note that this was an artificially intelligent created picture. So I wanted really to have an inspiring one. I asked ChatGPT, and it came up with this beautiful thing. So just to put things in perspective as to the threat of AI, I think that AI is not completely up the curve in everything that it does, but we have to monitor it. So going back to AI in education, what is the role of lifelong learning in leading us to a world of AI? There are a few areas like AI in which the case for lifelong learning is highly compelling. We know that AI technology strongly disrupt the way we have learned to do things, and to be fully embraced, the take-up of AI technologies ought to be accompanied by a large-scale parallel training effort for an entire generation of adults. I mean, I include myself in that. We all need to learn what AI is in the first place, what it can do for us, how it plays with our minds, of course. But it's very likely that to learn the last of these, we'll need to unlearn some of what we were originally taught in school and make space in our brains for new knowledge and ways of thinking. For some of us, this paradigm shift might also mean eliminating some forms of anti-technology bias, or it might be also being even more critical about seeing things written that are actually really blatantly not true, and that you need to contest and verify. However, collectively, we'll also need to get there together. Lifelong education on AI could be a way to strengthen the position of humans, making them stronger vis-a-vis AI, to develop, as Guy Gerenzer was saying, one's personal strengths to control a device rather than being remote controlled by it. I like this analogy. And then embracing the implications of this recommendation would obviously go beyond lifelong education. It might result in, if you think of, for those of you who have kids, coding being considered a genuine language that children ought to become proficient with at the earliest possible age in school. This would be not just in the logic of digitalizing our societies for the mere sake of it, but rather with a broader aim of empowerment that I hope will lead us to embrace AI, but with a sharp critical sense. Only then will we be in a position to make the most of its potential without at the same time harming our fellow citizens. In that context, and in closing, we're very proud at the Florence School of Banking and Finance to contribute to this wider empowerment effort through our training courses, and of which a few now are focused for EU-SDFA on AI. So let me now turn to two of our ebook authors whose contributions I deliberately didn't spoil. That's firstly Giuseppe Sciascia from SG Reform, the European Commission, on AI and ESG, and second to Pascal Lamp from EIOPA on ethical considerations. Giuseppe, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pierre, for the very nice introduction and for not spoiling me these very short remarks I will do now. Good afternoon also from my side. I am Giuseppe Sciascia. I am working as well in SG Reform. I've had the pleasure to be the coordinator from the side of SG Reform for 3 years now on this project, and actually work together with the colleagues of the UI on the preparation of this second ebook as well. Both in the conception phase, but also in the actual implementation phase, as we would say in the commission. So basically drafting an actual chapter of the book. And the chapter I've had the pleasure to draft tries to explore a bit of a niche aspect, if you want, of artificial intelligence and the AI-based applications, which is related to the relation between this technology and the sustainability considerations, the different ESG factors and elements that are also quite trendy when it comes to regulatory aspects, but that are also extremely relevant in the context of financial regulation and supervision, which at the end of the day is the focus of the academy and then the focus of the book. Now, the starting point, I think, it's pretty simple. AI is part of the AI-based applications are part of the transition towards a more digitized economy, which is happening in parallel and in connection with the transition towards a sustainable economy. This is the very famous concept of the twin transition that has been around for several years, and it's indeed part of the policy approach pursued by the Commission through the past mandate, and still relevant, of course, right now. And that poses a number of questions, because there are clear relations between the two. So I think that this chapter and a little bit follows the same approach of and tries to propose the same lenses through which we try to look at the phenomenon of AI uptake in general in the financial sector, which is AI part of the problem or part of the solution? When it comes to sustainability considerations, we can think of AI as something that can enable, if you want, more easily the sustainable transition, but then create opportunities, but also create new types of risks, or probably it has basically a dark side that is not immediate to recognize and see. And then this dark side, and this is a second step, how this translates into the role of financial institutions and in general into the financial sector, both from the perspective of financial institutions, supervised entities, but also from the perspective of the role that supervisory authorities have to play. So that the chapter tries to address these questions, and we start from, of course, from the bright side. So how AI-based applications are trying to help delivering on sustainable development goals. There are a lot of examples of applications that help making progress on agriculture, education, to resonate what we have just said, and in general helping humans building a fairer society. But then, unfortunately, there is also the other side of the coin, and this is there is a growing body of literature and research on the cost of AI, and in particular on the impact related to the environment, and then in turn the climate impact of AI, and also the social dimension of the ESG triad that we try to explore as well in the book. The environmental impact is basically related to the type of resources that AI-based models consume. In a sense, the use of servers, the use of energy that is required to make sure that these servers can work, and these lead to a question that is very hard to reply to. I mean, what is the balance between the costs and benefits in this regard? Is it worth putting on a simple query in ChatGPT, knowing that this will consume basically a bottle of fresh and drinkable water to get to your reply? There is clearly also a climate impact dimension, which is related to the fact that part of the energy that is used in order to make sure that the models can run is using very carbon intense, is very carbon intense, and so it's causing growing emissions. Now, how all of this turns when it comes to the financial sector? Well, it's pretty easy to say. On the one hand, we know that financial institutions are called more and more are more and more held accountable when it comes to their impact on ESG dimensions. This is clear in the regulatory framework, and so one question that will emerge over time is how should the use of AI-based applications and models be accounted for in the assessment of the impact financial institutions have on the 3 ESG factors. But there is also a question on the side of supervisory authorities, how supervisory authorities should balance, on the one hand, the use of AI-based solutions that can improve the efficiency and cost effectiveness and stability of financial institutions, but at the same time can reverberate on their ESG credentials. This is again a question that to which we don't provide an answer to the book, so sorry for the spoiler, but that is important maybe to raise and to keep on the back of our mind. And last but not least, this is a question that also has to do with the evolution of the regulatory framework. There is a clear link in this chapter with the work that was mentioned before, still in the book, about the role the AI Act plays in the context of the use of AI in the financial sector, and the role supervisory authorities have to play, in particular when it comes to high-risk applications. But there is also a link with the regulatory trends affecting sustainability aspects. As you know, this is an area that is evolving, where attention is of course still on sustainability considerations, but at the same time, competitiveness aspects, as mentioned by Lorenzo before, remain prominent, and so that the balancing effort it's even more complex. So I mean, I unfortunately didn't ask ChatGPT to provide me with a nice image for final thoughts, as Pierre did, but I wanted just to a little bit summarize these messages as a way to further invite our audience to reflect a bit on these topics, and that we require for sure further efforts from in terms of research, in terms of understanding, and in terms of also of collection of granular and precise data, and the development of approaches that try indeed to balance both the bright and dark side from a sustainability perspective of these applications. Now, very well connected to this, I have the pleasure to pass the floor to my colleague Pascal from EIOPA, who has been investigating another topic that is very strongly connected with the chapter on sustainability, and that has to do with ethical considerations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giuseppe, and good afternoon. I hope you can hear me clearly. And good afternoon. My name is and good afternoon. My name is Pascal Lam, as Giuseppe mentioned. I work at EIOPA in the Digital Finance Unit, and it's a pleasure to be here today to discuss this section of the ebook on ethical considerations and consumer protection. As we've heard repeatedly, AI has the potential to transform the financial sector, and with it, consumer experiences and the way us also as consumers also engage with financial services. For consumers, AI is making financial services more accessible, efficient, and in a lot of ways more secure and potentially affordable for everyday users. There are clear benefits for consumers with AI, and in a lot of ways, AI is making financial services much more consumer-centric than it used to be. But as always, alongside these benefits do come some ethical concerns and consumer risks that must be carefully managed to ensure fairness, transparency, and trust. And for the rest of my presentation today, for the sake of time, I will focus essentially on the three key main consumer and ethical risks outlined in this section. So the risk of bias and discrimination, differential pricing, and transparency. And within each, I'll outline and discuss some of the strategies that we outline in this section to mitigate them. So the first area that I'm going to touch upon is probably currently one of the most pressing ethical that AI's potential and that's with AI's potential to entrench bias and inequalities. AI systems rely on large data sets that are skilled at identifying and categorizing information from data and then using this knowledge to then make predictions about unknown data. But any errors or inaccuracies in the data, whether accidental or not, will be reflected in the output. And anyone who works with data knows data sets often contain biases, and that will then be reflected in the AI decision making. Generally, and on the basis of well-designed algorithms and good quality data, the more data an algorithm is trained on, the more accurate its predictions become. But while AI systems can identify numerous correlations in data sets, not all the correlations are cause and effect relationships. So regardless of how large the data set is, it still represents a limited snapshot of reality. And so if not properly managed, AI will reinforce existing inequalities. Those existing inequalities already exist, but with AI, it can be on a much larger scale. For instance, in lending decisions where historically marginalized groups may be unfairly denied credit due to biased data, essentially. And to address this, the chapter outlines how financial firms can introduce and implement fairness metrics and regularly audit AI models to detect and correct biases. Another area more leaning towards consumer protection concerns is the rise of differential pricing. So as I mentioned earlier, AI enables kind of personalized pricing strategies where consumers are charged different prices based on their data. While this can enhance innovation and competitiveness, it also poses risks that regulators and supervisors need to be conscious of, as well as the average consumer. So those with limited financial knowledge or bargaining power may end up paying more for the same services. Also, as we're learning, it's not just necessarily down to financial literacy. Different consumer profiles react differently to sharing their data. And increasingly, it's being reported that women in particular do not like sharing data as freely as men do. But also, where I live here in Germany, German consumers are very reluctant to share data. So essentially what you could see emerging is two tiers of consumers, those who are willing to share data and therefore will have access to products and services, and those who are not and therefore will have to pay more. And some of you may think that's only fair. It's not just in financial services. If you want to access online services these days, then you have to share your data. But as regulators and supervisors, we have a responsibility to correct that assumption. And it's not simple, but it does require clear communication with consumers. So as regulators, we can really ensure that pricing algorithms are transparent and fair, the ones used by firms, and that those firms disclose the rationale behind price variations. Moreover, without transparency about how these prices are determined, consumers may not be able to make informed decisions or may feel unfairly treated, which undermines their trust in the long term in financial institutions. And this brings me quite nicely to the third risk outlined in the chapter and the issue of transparency. So many AI models, particularly deep learning systems, operate as black boxes, making it difficult to understand how decisions are made. While these systems can kind of deliver accurate predictions, their decision-making processes often remain opaque, making it difficult to understand how they arrive at specific outcomes and decisions. Similar to the point I made earlier, without transparent explanations, consumers have limited recourse to either dispute decisions or knowing what they need to do to improve their behavior to have access to products and services. And aside from being a trust issue, it's not a consumer trust issue, it's not entirely what we would consider as treating customers and consumers fairly. So firms should be able to provide comprehensive explanations about the inherent functioning of the AI systems to supervisors and auditors. And consumers should be informed that they are interacting with an AI system or an AI system that has an influence on a decision that has a material impact on them. This information should be provided by using very simple, clear, non-technical language. And to just highlight how important this is, I think BERC, the European Consumer Organization, did a survey with EU consumers, and only 18% of consumers claimed that AI had any presence in their life. And yet I think a large majority of them admitted to regularly engaging with chatbots. And certainly if I were to talk to my parents, they would reply the same thing. They would say that AI has no presence in their life. So there is this information gap or a digital literacy gap that also needs to be addressed. However, on this issue of transparency, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, essentially, because from a frontline supervision perspective, AI systems actually increase transparency and explainability. You know, the automation of decisions previously made by humans is now much more transparent because of the digital trail of data. And the methodologies essentially used in these decisions is much more readily available for review and replication as well. And so actually, to pick up biases or discrimination, it's now much more easier to do this as a supervisor through an AI system than it would be through a human individual. For example, like in the area of insurance and claims management, the decision to accept or reject an insurance claim has traditionally been made by claim handlers of the insurance undertaking. And so potential prejudices that these individuals could have are left undetected or hard to detect. So this would be much more difficult to detect in these instances, much easier to detect in these instances. But to ensure that AI kind of plays this transparency role, there does need to be some consideration, considering how financial firms and their boards develop accountability structures, ensure proper AI governance, and assign responsibility in each stage of the AI life cycle to prevent harm and uphold ethical standards, and also guarantee complaint and redress mechanisms. Such an approach really fosters transparency, but also ensures that mistakes are rectified, and mistakes are human nature and ultimately can increase consumer trust in AI-driven financial services. But maybe just to conclude, none of these challenges and risks should be new to regulators or supervisors. Transparency, bias, and even pricing have been an ongoing challenge for regulators and supervisors. And that's to say essentially that none of these challenges are unique to AI, it's just that the technology is new. And it's not just new for regulators and supervisors, it's also new for the industry, and therefore it's an opportunity for regulators and financial institutions to really collaborate and to embed ethical principles in AI governance. And this approach will be, I think, long-term beneficial to financial services and consumers more broadly and society as a whole. But I will stop now, but I know we're going to a Q&A session, so I will looking forward to that discussion. And I'll hand over back to you, Nicola.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Pascal, and thank you all our speakers. I think we received some food of thought, and we whet your appetite to download the ebook if you haven't done so. I was a bit concerned because I haven't seen any question in the chat, and I was a bit disappointed because I was scrolling participants and I saw many of our former participants in SDFA activities, and I always praise how our participants are active, engaging in our training. But I'm very happy that we gathered some questions. So without further ado, because we have 10-15 minutes, I'm gonna ask the first question, which was raised by Huda, related to analysis or data collection conducting the framework of EU-SDFA. And here I leave the floor maybe to Pierre that can complement.
Yes, thank you, Nicola. And thank you for the question. So we share indeed a lot of data experiences and practices as part of all EU-SDFA events. You will remember that the EU-SDFA activities, both training and workshops, are accessible only for participating authorities. So Giuseppe might come in to give further context if there are more questions on this. And so that's the way we collectively increase our understanding and collective capacities on innovation and digital finance generally. Conducting extensive empirical research is not in the scope of EU-SDFA. However, there would be an ebook 3.0, so we don't stop here, and we make sure also in parallel at the EUI, we're working on an Oxford University Press handbook where there will be about 30 to 35 chapters on digital finance, both the regulatory and the supervisory part, and that will be released in 2026 and available in every good bookstore. So there is analysis coming up, but again, academic research is not really what EU-SDFA is about. Giuseppe, feel free to complement, of course.
Yes, indeed. No, the program was born really as a capacity building one. Of course, we can use the sessions and trainings to disseminate, for example, research papers, activities that are carried out both from partner institutions, but also from NCAs themselves. But indeed, we have not, let's say, as part of the activities, the plan to carry out specific research on topics, unless this is really linked with the preparation of some of the communication and dissemination materials that still we have part as this ebook of the offer of the academy.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. So going to the question, we have a very let's say technical question from Julia. Is there a strong evidence of application of artificial intelligence techniques, mainly algorithms, in algorithmic trading and high frequency trading? We should have had some ESMA colleagues specialized in this, but I don't know if Lorenzo, you have any thought on this?
Yes, so thank you for the question. It's a very good one because it goes to the heart of the question of the difference between the potential of AI in finance and the actual adoption. So for more detail on this, I can refer you to the first chapter of the second part, which is the one by Professor Misheva from Bern University, is on the potential of AI in traditional finance. So there you will find direct reference to this, including directions to some specific authors who have either talked about this or tested specific models to use AI in asset management in general. And I mean, the long story short is that it's being used both for price prediction, but also to construct investment strategies. The extent to which this is sort of a full-blown implementation and adoption within the industry is less clear. I know that algorithmic trades, for example, as mentioned in the chapter, accounted for only 15% of market volume in 2004, but now we handle 70 to 85% of trades. So this is algorithmic trading. So then there is a question of to what extent within that generative AI or other types of AI are now being deployed. So I think this is a moving number, a moving metric. I again suggest you maybe take a look at that chapter and see some of the publications and authors that are mentioned in there, and you can probably get more detail on this topic.
Thank you. No, thank you, Lorenzo. Very, very clear answer. And also, spoiler, next week we're going to start the 4th advanced training week in the framework of SDFA, which is on artificial intelligence in the financial sector. So maybe, Julia, if we get some further details during the training, we will share it with you by email. So,
can I just, Nicola,
yes.
Can I just say, in that, on algorithmic trading and AI, in the research community, one of the key aspect that is research is very much collusion. So I don't want to go longer on this, but I will share that in the chat. There is an important piece to which, by the way, an EY professor was contributing to the American Economic Review of last year, I think.
Perfect. Thank you, Per, very much. Addressing Andrei question, if we perceive, do you perceive any risk associated with employing artificial intelligence and subtech for supervisory function? There is a general concern because of what it might learn from non-public documents and information. This could lead to the unintended disclosure of sensitive information to the public. I don't know. I know, Pascal, subtech is not your field, but maybe you have some insights from a supervisory perspective.
Sorry, apologies. It's not my area of expertise, but I will say that this is actually a growing concern for EIOPA internally, and actually we are internally in the process of developing governance, a structure of governance on how we use AI tools and the different AI tools that we use. So actually internally, we do have guidance on what we should be, what tools we use. So in particular, we use, everyone is very aware that ChatGPT in particular is very popular, but there are clear guidance to colleagues that they are not to put any non-public information or any sensitive data information on ChatGPT. And I think the reason we've taken that approach is because essentially we realized that you can't avoid it. It's become such a popular tool that it's unavoidable, but there is clear guidelines on how we use it. Also internally at EIOPA, and this is maybe not totally popular, but you know, we don't use Copilot at the moment because we're still setting up governance around this essentially, and what we can share and what we can't share. So this is an ongoing problem, and it's actually a bit of an ongoing challenge. So we really appreciate that it's a challenge also for NCAs as well. But I think it is about setting clear governance structures essentially.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Pascal. I don't know if any one of the colleagues would like to add something.
I'll just add that I would be very worried about any organization that answers no to that question, whether it's in the public sector, the private sector. I mean, there is so much unsaid and untold information about how AI works that I think any organization that takes decisions, especially if they have a public responsibility by using AI tools, they should definitely be very aware of the risks that are involved.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Lorenzo. So we are already running out of time. Maybe we can follow up with the last two questions with very brief answer. One is very quick, and I ask the editors maybe to provide further details. Are data protection issues is directly dealt in this edition of the ebook? I don't know if Pierre or Lorenzo can address this.
Yeah, I mean, Pascal, would you mind taking this up?
Yeah, I can take this up. So we do cover data protection a bit in our segment. Essentially, we kind of outline kind of where we feel consumers need to be additional protection, but we don't unfortunately go into that much detail unfortunately on the data protection part. Sorry.
Maybe can be one of the focus of next year.
Yeah.
We're already gathering ideas, so this is also food for thought on our side. And maybe we can end with this question that I think, Pascal, maybe you can also briefly direct, which is how the issue of generative misinformation, disinformation regarding market actors handled.
So misinformation is increasingly becoming a growing challenge, and unfortunately, it's not just led by AI systems, unfortunately, and by AI actors. And actually, I think misinformation is a challenge that will have to be kind of addressed across the financial sector. So I really do feel that firms need to start engaging in clear, accessible information for consumers so that they're not necessary, so they feel that they can approach firms directly to get this information rather than necessarily following down to ChatGPT, for example. Secondly, I think for regulators, it will be a role of increasing monitoring, a bit similar to the monitoring that you've seen that we have now with influencers and crypto assets. But also from the regulatory side, I think it is about sending very clear messages to consumers about how they should be trusting these systems, essentially. And also, just going back to lastly, the point that Pierre made, you know, there are some fantastic digital literacy campaigns, both at a member state level and also by the European Commission. And I do think it's a responsibility for supervisors to really encourage consumers to continue to educate themselves and to continue to be much more aware of the challenges and the risks that are out there. And I do feel that promoting digital literacy campaigns is really essential now.
Okay, thank you very much. Unless one of my colleagues would like to have some final words. Fantastic. So I really would like to thank all the participants, and usual our SDFA audience didn't disappoint us with very clever and interesting questions. So follow us on LinkedIn. As you know, we have a LinkedIn page, EUA Supervisory Digital Finance Academy. On LinkedIn, we post video peels, communications related to what we are doing in the framework of SDFA. So if you want to follow up and be updated on what we are doing in this very cool project, please follow us, follow the LinkedIn page. We have a website, the SDFA website, so you can find all the information also in that framework. And again, thank you very much for participating in this event, and I really hope to see you in one of our activities. Thank you very much, and have a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to our organizer, Laura and Jan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many
Bye.
thanks. Many thanks. Bye.